August the 14th, 416. You know, I don't know what you all know about me, but I had something today that happened to me for the second time. What exactly? Would you believe I seen this gentleman in Walmart from about 30 feet away, had his back to me, and I knew who this person was. And I hadn't seen this person since 1980. I walked up to him and asked him if his first name was Michael. Well, that checked out. Then I asked him if his last name started with a T, and that checked out. He's one of my old school teachers. He's 80 years old. So yeah, I talked to him and his wife for quite a while, and I actually told him, you know, when I was honest in telling him this, he was a good teacher. Why was he a good teacher? Because I felt like he wanted to be there teaching children. That's how I felt about him. Well, if you go back about 8 months ago, I get behind this guy in Walmart, back to me. I could tell by the way he was walking who he was. So I approached him. Sure enough, he was my physical education teacher that I hadn't seen since 1975. I could tell who he was by the way he walked. So that's two that I've done that way, boys. What do you think about that? Didn't even have to see their face, didn't have to hear their voices, didn't have to see their eyes. You know, I'm a very perceptive person. The way you carry yourself, the way you walk. This guy, the way he was leaning. He had this woman in front of him. I didn't know who she was. I thought he was actually his own customer. He was actually waiting on his wife, evidently. They're getting medicine at the pharmacy counter at Walmart. But the way he was slumped down there a little bit, and his physique, and looking at him on the back of his head, I knew who he was. How about that? So it's happened twice. Now, let's talk about something else here. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about presidential candidates and the presidential election a little bit in this country. You know, I can make a case that a presidential candidate running for president in this country, they are on trial, aren't they? No, they've not committed a crime. You know what I'm saying? They're on trial. They present their case, don't they? And they're on trial. The jurors in the case are the American people when they go pull that lever or push that button. So think about that. So they're on trial. They've chose to put themselves in this position to be a candidate for president. As nominees, either one of them could withdraw today if they so chose. So they have put themselves in this position. Okay, so let's change subjects here just a minute to show you where I'm going with this little conversation here. You know, Sharpshooter, I don't know, I'm a thinker. Okay? So now let's switch gears. So now we've got this person that's been arrested for murder one. They killed one or two people, whatever. And the murders was done 5 years ago. Let's say they caught this person. 5 years later they caught him. By whatever means. So that person goes on trial. Correct? And think about this. So all of the evidence against this person accused of murder, would any of his conversations that he had had in the past be used as evidence against him? Would anybody that he has talked to, could they testify as to what they were told? Most certainly. Could anything that this person has said on social media be used against him in his trial? Most certainly. Any evidence that would support showing to diminish the reasonable doubt, meaning this person did it, could be used, correct? As long as the means are obtained lawfully, legally. Okay? So think about what I just said. Okay, so now we've got two presidential candidates, don't we? And they've both said things in the past, haven't they? And they're both on trial. Okay? Now, let's go back to this person who was accused of murder. Let's say this person that committed these murders 5 years ago and he was caught to be tried, arrested, indicted, he's being tried. I wonder if this person, 3 years after these murders were committed, there was clear evidence, either through testimony of other people, or something he had posted on social media, or even the gentleman himself. You know, you get to testify as a defendant in this country if you so choose. So, wonder if it can be showed in the trial, even through the defendant testifying, and he says, oh, well, I found Jesus 2 years ago. I'm a saint now. I found Jesus. I go to church every Sunday and every Wednesday. Every Sunday, twice a day, and then on Wednesdays, I go to church. I'm a saint now. I've been baptized. I found Jesus. Well, if a jury heard that, that doesn't negate the fact that this man, if all the other evidence supports beyond a reasonable doubt to give a guilty verdict of the murder he committed, that doesn't negate that, correct? He did what he did. And he said what he said, maybe. Maybe they've got found some documents in his house where he had wrote something down, or there's witnesses that testifies, oh yeah, he told me he killed this girl. Or man, whoever it was. So now let's fast forward back to this presidential election. You see where I'm going with this? So we've got this lady that has said things in the past, hasn't she? Now remember, if you'll go back and look at Miss Harris, when she answered a lot of those questions back in 2019 and 2020, she always, for most of the time, she prefixed or prefaced her comments with what? Without a question. Without a question. Oh, no question about it. Without a question. Oh, ban fracking. Oh, without question, turn the detainees, you know, these illegals in captivity, turn them loose. You notice she didn't say, you know, well, I've thought about this and I'm still I've not made up my mind, but if I had to say today, this is what I would do. She didn't say that, did she? She said without question, no doubt. So we're going to be the jury between her and her opposition, Mr. Trump, former President Trump. And she has said things in the past, she has done things in the past, and she has not done things in the past that are part of her responsibilities as Vice President. So you see, this woman, she doesn't get to do a complete makeover. Okay? And I want you to think about this. Yeah. Somebody in life can have a change of heart on something. That's no joke. That can happen. But look when this lady has had a change of heart, and look when we found out about it. We didn't find out about this 6 months ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. If we see a vice president of this country who stays in office supporting their president as vice president, they don't resign, we can only assume what? Common sense says, oh, okay, so they support all of their policies. There's nothing outrageous about the President Biden's policies. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, there's nothing stops Kamala from resigning right now. But she didn't do that, did she? So common sense says what? She agreed with him. And she wasn't out publicly disagreeing with him. She could do that as vice president. She could do that. Alright, camera back on. I'm going to wrap this video up. You know, when you run for president in this country and you become the nominee to be elected in the general election, remember what I said, you're on trial. But in a criminal case, the defendant doesn't have to take the stand. But guess what? It looks like that's what Kamala Harris is trying to do. She's actually trying to plead the fifth by not talking to the press. Imagine that. She's pleading the fifth, boys. Donald Trump is making himself available just here, there, and yonder with practically any reporter. The friendly ones, the unfriendly ones. Doesn't matter what network. You got to have thick skin to be a good president. Donald Trump's got the thickest skin of probably any man in modern history. That's a fact. The jellyfish that's running against him, though, what about her? That's going to conclude the video.